The storm had raged for 3 days across the barren world of Thria, tearing apart the temporary shelters that human explorers had hastily erected. Jacob Hale, former Marine-turned-wanderer, had stayed behind after the colony evacuation, determined to map the land no one else wanted. To him, silence was a gift. To others it was death. On the third night, when lightning bled green across the skies and the wind howled like a wounded beast, Jacob stumbled across her. The alien girl was collapsed against a shattered ridge of rock, her body half covered in ash and mud. Her skin shimmered faintly under the stormlight, pale silver, threaded with blue lines that pulsed faintly like veins of fire. She couldn't have been older than 16 by human reckoning, small, fragile, her breath so shallow Jacob feared he had found a corpse. But when he leaned down, brushing mud from her face, her eyes snapped open. They were enormous, molten gold, and filled with a terror so deep it made Jacob's stomach tighten. "Easy," he muttered, slipping his jacket around her shoulders. "You're safe. I'm not here to hurt you." The girl tried to speak, her voice rasping in a language Jacob didn't recognize, but then she slumped unconscious. Without thinking, Jacob lifted her into his arms and carried her back to the remains of his shelter. For 2 days he nursed her with drops of purified water and the last of his ration nutrient paste. She stirred, whimpered, but survived. Jacob never expected gratitude. He wasn't sure she understood what he'd done. But on the morning of the third day, she woke fully. Her golden eyes fixed on him. Her lips trembled. Then, in broken human tongue, she whispered, "Why, you saved me?" Jacob frowned. "Because you needed help." She stared at him for a long while, as if those words were foreign to her people. The middle secrets of the tribe. The girl's name, Jacob learned, was Sarah. She belonged to a people who dwelled in hidden valleys far beyond the human colony's reach, tribes who lived entirely apart from the war-torn empires that ruled the stars. She never said how she had been left out in the storm, but Jacob saw the scars along her arms, the half-healed burns across her ribs, and he wondered. For a while, she remained silent and watchful, following Jacob's every movement as if studying him. She copied his gestures, mimicked his speech, and when he tried to laugh at her clumsy words, she smiled shyly, as though she hadn't smiled in a very long time. Days passed. The storm faded, leaving the land drenched but livable. Jacob wondered what he would do with her. He had no way of contacting the colony ship anymore, and even if he did, they wouldn't care about one alien girl. On the 6th day, Jacob woke to find Sarah gone. His chest seized with panic. He tracked her prints through the wet sand and scrub until the trail ended in the shadow of a canyon. That's when he heard the voices. Dozens of them. Female voices. Jacob crouched low, his instincts screaming danger, as figures emerged from the canyon mouth. They were women, scores of them, dressed in hides and silken strands woven with beads of light. Their skin bore the same silvery sheen as Sarah's, though some shimmered darker, like moonlight on steel. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dusk, marking them as kin to the girl he had rescued. At their head strode a tall woman with braided hair that fell to her waist, her face sharp and commanding. She looked at Jacob with a predator's calm and then turned her gaze to Sarah, who ran to her and clasped her arm. The woman studied Jacob again and spoke in their tongue, her voice like a song edged with steel. Sarah answered quickly, pointing back at him, repeating a word over and over. Jacob didn't understand the words, but the look in Sarah's eyes was clear. She was defending him. The leader's gaze softened slightly, and she approached Jacob with slow, deliberate steps. When she finally spoke in halting human tongue, her words sent a chill down his spine. "You saved her. Few would." Jacob nodded stiffly. She needed help. The woman tilted her head, considering him. Then she said, "Come. You must see the hidden valley." They led him into the canyon, past walls etched with glowing runes, and into a hidden valley that stretched wide and green beneath the alien sun. There, Jacob saw huts of woven reeds, fires burning in stone circles, and hundreds more of the silver-skinned people. All women. No men, not anywhere. The tribe welcomed Sarah with tears and soft laughter, brushing her hair, examining her scars. But Jacob felt their eyes on him, curious and wary, as if his presence were both a miracle and a threat. Over the next days, he learned pieces of their story. Their people were once part of a vast empire, but the men had gone to war centuries ago and never returned. Left alone, the women had endured, surviving storms and predators, carving out sanctuaries far from the empire's gaze. But their numbers dwindled. Few children were born, and fewer still survived the storms. Sarah was the youngest of them all. The leader, whose name was Althira, spoke to Jacob often, questioning him about humanity, about men, about the worlds he came from. He told her of Earth, of oceans and forests, of wars and peace, of children laughing in cities that stretched toward the sky. She listened with a hunger in her eyes that unsettled him. One night, as they sat by the fire, she said softly, "You're kind, you protect your young?" Jacob nodded. "We try. Not always perfectly, but we try." Her golden eyes burned. "We need that. We need you." The choice. Jacob realized then why Sarah had been left in the storm. She wasn't abandoned. She had been a test. A desperate hope. They had watched to see if a human, a male of another species, would help or harm. By saving her, he had proven something to them. Althira gathered the tribe and spoke words Jacob didn't understand, but the way the women looked at him, some with awe, some with fear, some with tears, told him enough. They wanted him to stay. Days bled into weeks. Jacob built shelters, taught them to reinforce their homes against storms, showed them how to filter water and hunt more efficiently. In return, they taught him their songs, their glowing script, their ways of healing wounds with herbs that pulsed faintly with light. But always, he felt the weight of expectation pressing closer. Sarah followed him constantly, clinging to his every word. Althira studied him with a leader's patience, but a woman's need. The tribe whispered when he passed, and Jacob realized the truth he hadn't dared to face. They didn't just want his knowledge. They wanted his bloodline. He was one man in a tribe of hundreds of women whose people were fading. To them, he was hope embodied. But to Jacob, he was just a man stranded far from home. The ending, a new legacy. One evening, as the valley's fires burned low, Jacob stood at the canyon's edge with Althira. "You wish to go," she said quietly. He hesitated. "I don't belong here." "You do now," she whispered. "Sarah lives because of you. We endure because of you. If you leave, our last hope leaves with you." Jacob closed his eyes, torn between freedom and duty. He had no family left back home, no ship, no colony to return to. All he had was these women, this hidden valley, this strange, fragile bond. When he opened his eyes, Sarah stood behind him, her golden gaze wide with fear, as if she could hear the choice forming in his heart. He thought of her words that first morning, "Why you saved me." Now he had his answer.